Hey, what's going on, class? My name is Joseph Glasscock, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to put together your set of spurs. Um, I feel I'm qualified to teach this because I went through vigorous classes on how to do these myself. Um, a little bit of history about these. It's kind of tradition for a cav unit, which I'm in, to go out and earn your spurs. Now, you get silver spurs and you get gold spurs. The silver ones you get for actually completing something called the spur ride. Now, the spur ride can go from anywhere to 1 to 3 days. Luckily, mine was only one because we're in a bit of a time crunch. So they tried to fit everything into one day so we could knock it out. Now, basically, what a spur ride is you just go and you ruck march from anywhere to 23 to 28 miles. And in between, well, while you're doing the ruck march, there's a set of stations. Now, each station will give you a bit of history on the unit that we're in. Now, it's totally up to you whether you take notes or not. I'm sorry. Like I said, it's totally up to you whether you take notes or not. But at the end, you go through this board with pretty much all the higher ups, like the colonel, sergeant major, and a bunch of first sergeants. And what you do is they ask you questions that you learned throughout this entire spur ride. Now, normally they just give everyone a go ahead, whether you get the questions right or not. But it's always best to take notes and to study and make sure you don't look like a fool when you go through this board. When I went, I believe mine was on Tuesday, this most recent Tuesday that we had. It started at about 5 a.m. and it ended roughly around 10:30 ish. And I will tell you that it has been one of the most difficult challenges that I've ever been a part of. It really tested me. I wanted to quit so many times, but I didn't, and I ended up earning my spurs. So that's the silver spurs. The gold spurs are something that you really just have to deploy to earn. Now, say you deploy and you never went through the spur ride, you could still buy these, but you cannot wear them until you complete the spur ride and earn your silver spurs, which is really the biggest accomplishment was actually going through and doing the spur ride and earning your silver spurs. And the gold ones are just for deploying. So this is what they look like when they're put together. You have two straps. You really just loop it through all these holes, which I will show you in a second. And then I have one set up for you. You put it on a boot, or if you're going to a formal thing such as a military ball, which actually we just had 2 days ago. You could put those on your boots, or you could put them on your dress shoes. It really doesn't matter. But I do have one set up for you already, and I will be taking you through the process of how to set these up. So step one is putting this strap on. Now, really, before you put this on, there's requirements for married people and for single people. So for single people, you want this little thing right here to be facing upwards, and for married people, you want it to be facing downwards, like such. So I am single, so I will be setting it up like this. Now, whenever you put this strap on, you want to ensure that this leather part is facing up. I'm sorry, excuse me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this thing is facing downwards first, and then I will loop it through the bottom of this hole, bring it all the way through, and then down through this loop, and then I will just do the same thing to the other side. Up and over. So I set it up like this with this thing facing down. So now I will turn it over. That way, when I put it on my boot, this leather part will be facing up like such. Now, what a buddy of mine taught me that I think is super effective is you don't want this little loop right here to be super loose, but you also don't want it to be super tight. That way it has a good fitting on your boot. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that there's enough room for me to strap it on. So I just loosen each side one at a time until I think it's good enough. So like this, I feel like it's too loose, so I'm going to pull this buckle a little bit like that. And that's how you put that on. Now, when you put it on the boot, it's always easier to make sure you put this little loop first. Now, this loop is going to go right here on the boot. So it's a lot easier to make sure, it's a lot easier to do it with the boot on, but we're gonna go ahead and do it with the boot off. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So also you could stretch these out. You could tighten it if you want like that, or you could also stretch it out like that. I do have big feet, so mine will be stretched out. Like I said, you want to try and put the little loop first. So I squeeze it on there, and this thing will go, the spur will actually sit around this right here. So you put it on, making sure that, let me try that again. You could put it on like that first, and then you adjust the little strap. And like I said, it is a lot easier to do it with the boot on. That way you have some stability, but we will make it work. So really you just jimmy it all the way down. Once you get enough, you can push it in more, and then the buckle should slide right on. See, like such. Once you get that done, then you could go ahead and just push this all the way in, like so. And see, it sits right here along the heel. Now, once you do that, the reason why it's best to do it with the boot on is that way you could like put some pressure on this little loop right here. And when you put pressure, it won't move when you try and like, so see, without pressure, if I try to tighten it, you see how the spur comes up a little bit. So if you put some pressure on it while you're like stepping on it, you could actually tighten it up. And then you just buckle it on like such. Now there is multiple holes depending on how tight you want it. I normally go to the second hole, which is right there. And then you just loop it through. Like such. And now you have a spur on. And like I said, for married people, this thing will be facing the opposite way. So essentially, if you are married, all you have to do is everything that I just taught you, but the opposite. So how I initially showed you how to put it on with this facing down, you would do it with this facing up, and you would just follow the same steps. That way when you turn it over to put it on, it will be the same way as I taught you for single people. Now, I know sometimes some things are a lot easier said than done. So if anyone is trying to set up their spurs and they do need some help, I'm always available and I'm always open to help people. Thank you. That's awkward. I did not end the video. This is a blooper.